She looked at me the way people usually don't, steady, unhurried, as if nothing outside the moment mattered. I'd been carrying the heavy boxes up her porch steps, sweat running down my back, when her voice cut through the late afternoon air. "You work harder than any man I know," she said, and it wasn't just the words. It was the low, deliberate way she let them land, like a secret she hadn't planned to give away. Her name was Elena, my aunt's closest friend, 10 years older than my mother. Mid-40s, poised in a way I couldn't place. She didn't have to try. Her confidence filled the air around her like perfume, though she wore none. A white blouse, sleeves rolled to her elbows, collar loose. A single strand of hair fell against her cheek, and instead of tucking it back, she let it stay. I should have looked away. Instead, I kept my eyes on her longer than I meant to. She noticed. Inside, the house was too quiet. My aunt had gone upstairs, leaving the two of us alone in the living room, sunlight slanting across the floorboards. I set the last box down and wiped my palms on my jeans. She stood a few steps closer than she needed to, her arm brushing mine as she leaned to straighten the stack. "You always help your aunt like this?" she asked, voice lighter now, almost casual. "Whenever she lets me," I said. My throat felt dry, like I'd been running. She smiled. Not a wide smile, not meant for display. More like she was holding something back. Her fingers lingered on the edge of the cardboard box, then slipped away. I noticed her hands. Not young, not soft, but certain, with a quiet strength in the way she moved. The silence between us thickened. I pretended to busy myself, but I could feel her eyes on me, the kind of gaze that sees more than it should. When I finally met it, I couldn't hold it long. "Do you want some water?" she asked, stepping past me toward the kitchen. The scent of her, something faint like citrus, trailed after her. I followed, not because I needed anything to drink, but because leaving her alone in another room suddenly felt impossible. She filled 2 glasses, set one in front of me on the counter. Her knuckles brushed mine as she let go. A small thing, but it stayed in the air, humming. I should have pulled my hand back quicker, but I didn't. Neither did she. Her eyes flicked down at that contact, then up again. A pause too long, like a sentence left unfinished. I sipped the water just to break it, though it tasted warm, metallic. She tilted her head, studying me with a half-curious, half-knowing expression. "You're quieter than I expected," she said softly. "Maybe I don't have much to say." "I don't believe that," she replied, and the words hung there, heavier than they should have been. I opened my mouth to answer, but then the sound of the front door unlocking cut through the stillness. My aunt's voice called from the hallway, breaking whatever had been building. Elena's hand slid away from the counter, her posture shifting back into something easier, safer. But before turning, she gave me one last look, steady, unreadable, and in it was the clear sense that we just stepped past something we weren't supposed to. The next morning I showed up again, though my aunt hadn't asked. She was grateful, fussing over how much there still was to unpack, and then left me sorting books in the den while she drove to the store. That left Elena. She sat cross-legged on the floor a few feet away, thumbing through an old photo album she'd pulled from one of the boxes. The room smelled faintly of dust and coffee. I pretended to concentrate on the shelves, but my eyes kept slipping sideways to her. There was something in the way she bent over the pictures, head tilted, lips pressed together like she was holding back words she didn't want to say out loud. "Your aunt's kept everything," she murmured, showing me a faded Polaroid of them both in their 20s, grinning with arms around each other. Her hair had been darker then, straighter. "Feels like a lifetime ago." I crouched beside her. "You don't look that different." Her laugh was quick, almost dismissive, but her cheeks flushed faintly. "That's generous." She closed the album a little too fast. I didn't push. But in that silence I heard something else, an ache she carried, maybe for time lost or someone gone. She caught me studying her. "You ever been in love?" she asked suddenly, voice low, almost testing me. I hesitated. My last relationship had ended a year ago, with someone my age who never really listened. "Not in the way that matters," I admitted. Her eyes softened, then shifted away. "I was married once. Long ago." She traced the corner of the album with her fingertip. "Didn't last. I thought I'd stopped missing it, but some things stay with you." The air between us grew heavier. She wasn't just a woman in her 40s anymore, not just my aunt's friend. She was someone who'd lived through a kind of loneliness I didn't yet understand. I wanted to say something to close the gap, but the words stuck. Instead, my hand moved before I thought, resting lightly on her shoulder. She froze just for a second, then let out a breath so soft it brushed against my wrist. My pulse thudded. She didn't shrug me off. She only tilted her head slightly, as if listening. When she finally looked at me, the glance was too long, too direct. Her lips parted like she might speak, but she didn't. I pulled my hand back, heat flooding my face. "You shouldn't," she started, but her voice broke off. She pressed the album closed, set it aside, and stood with careful precision, as if putting distance would erase the moment. But later, when she passed me a stack of books to shelve, her fingers lingered against mine. Barely a brush, but deliberate. Neither of us said anything. We didn't have to. The room itself seemed to lean into the silence, carrying the weight of everything unspoken. And for the first time, I was certain she felt it too. That evening, the sky cracked open, rain hammering against the windows. The house felt smaller with just the two of us inside, my aunt delayed by traffic. Elena was in the kitchen, wiping down the counter, sleeves rolled high. The storm lit the room in pulses of white. I leaned in the doorway, trying not to look as restless as I felt. "You don't have to stay," she said, without turning. "I know." She finally glanced over, one brow raised. "Then why are you still here?" I couldn't answer. Not honestly. The silence between us lengthened, broken only by the rain. I crossed to the counter to help, reaching for the same dish towel. Our hands touched, flat, warm, too much skin for too long. She didn't pull back immediately. Neither did I. Then, my phone buzzed against the counter. A message from a friend flashed on the screen. She read it before I could grab it. "Where are you, man? We're waiting." Her eyes flicked to mine, searching, calculating. I snatched the phone, stuffed it in my pocket. "You should go," she said softly, but her voice lacked conviction. I shook my head. "I don't want to." The storm surged louder, shaking the windows. She exhaled, as if bracing herself. Then she stepped past me, close enough that her shoulder brushed my chest. I caught the faint scent of her skin, warm and citrus-like, sharper in the damp air. "Elena," I started, but the name tasted too heavy on my tongue. She turned back suddenly, closer than before, only inches between us. My heart pounded so hard it felt visible. "You don't know what you're doing," she whispered, almost pleading. "I think I do." Lightning flashed. For a moment, her face was lit in stark white. The curve of her mouth, the fine lines around her eyes, the tension written everywhere. Her hand rose, stopped midway, then rested against my chest. Just her fingertips. My breath caught. We didn't move. Couldn't. The world shrank to that one fragile point of contact. Her lips parted, and for a second, I thought she'd close the gap. My body leaned in, instinct stronger than reason. The sound of the front door unlocking shattered it. She jerked her hand back, stepping away so fast it hurt. My aunt's voice called out, cheerful, oblivious. Elena turned to the sink, gripping the counter like it was the only thing keeping her steady. I stood frozen, the taste of almost lingering in the air, chest tight. When my aunt entered, Elena had already masked her face, casual, calm. Only I knew the truth of how close she'd come. Later, when we brushed past each other in the hallway, she didn't speak. But her sleeve caught mine, fabric tugging just enough to hold us in place. A pause, one breath, one glance too long, and then she walked away, leaving me shaken and certain. Whatever we were resisting, it wasn't over. It happened late, after my aunt went to bed. The rain had thinned to a steady drizzle, the house quieter than it had been all day. Elena was on the couch, reading, a thin blanket draped over her legs. I lingered in the doorway too long before stepping inside. She looked up, eyes catching mine, and for once she didn't hide the weariness there. "You shouldn't stay up," I said. My voice was lower than I meant it to be. "Neither should you." She set the book down, but didn't move. I sat on the far end of the couch. Not close, not far enough. The silence hummed, louder than the storm outside. She pulled the blanket tighter around her, but I saw her hand tremble as she tucked it beneath her chin. I noticed every small thing now. The curve of her throat, the way her breath lingered before each word. "You keep looking at me like that," she whispered, "and something's going to break." I swallowed hard. Maybe it already has. Her lips parted, but she didn't answer. Instead, she shifted, setting the blanket aside, moving closer. Not much, just enough that the warmth of her body reached mine. The air thickened. My pulse hammered. I lifted my hand before I thought, brushing a loose strand of hair from her cheek. She didn't flinch, didn't stop me. Her skin was warm beneath my fingers, softer than I'd imagined. "Elena," I murmured. She closed her eyes briefly, like the sound of her name hurt. When she opened them again, they shone in the dim light. "This is wrong," she said, but her voice cracked, stripped of certainty. "Then tell me to stop." Her silence was an answer. She leaned back slightly, not away, but enough to make space between us, a space that burned. My hand fell, brushing against hers where it rested on the couch. Our fingers grazed, lingered. Her breath hitched. She turned her face toward mine, so close that I could feel the warmth of it. My chest tightened. "You make me feel," she broke off, biting the word back, shaking her head. "I can't say it." "Then don't say it." I shifted closer, my voice almost against her ear now. "Just let me know I'm not the only one." Her shoulders tensed, then softened, as if giving in to something she'd fought too long. She leaned into me, the side of her body pressed against mine. The weight of it, her warmth, her presence, was unbearable and perfect all at once. I tilted forward, breath brushing her temple, then her cheek. She didn't move away. Our mouths hovered a breath apart, the world suspended, fragile. Her hand slid to my chest again, steady, trembling both. We were right there, at the edge, everything braced on the next heartbeat. And then, a creak from the stairs. My aunt's voice calling faintly, half asleep. "Elena froze." My body locked, every nerve screaming. She whispered, so close I almost felt the words on my lips. "If you don't leave now, I won't stop you next time." The next morning, the air between us had shifted. She busied herself with chores, moving quickly, avoiding the places where our eyes might meet. I tried to do the same, but every time we passed in the hallway, the memory of her body leaning into mine, of her voice at the edge of surrender, came flooding back. I thought we'd buried it. Pretend, move on. But then my aunt mentioned it casually over breakfast, not looking up from her coffee. "Elena told me last night she doesn't want you carrying all the heavy lifting. She worries you'll wear yourself out." The words hit harder than they should. She'd spoken to me after I left. Thought of me. I glanced at Elena. She froze mid-step, plate in her hand, then set it down a little too carefully. Her cheeks colored faintly, but she kept her gaze on the table, lips tight. My aunt didn't notice. She kept talking, filling the air with light chatter, while Elena stood there, rigid. Later, when we were alone again, I couldn't hold it in. "You told her about me?" Her eyes flashed. "I didn't. Not like that. But you said something." Her breath quickened, chest rising and falling. I slipped. She stopped, shaking her head. "I was thinking about you, and I wasn't careful." The room went still. Her admission hung between us, dangerous, undeniable. I stepped closer, instinct stronger than sense. She backed up until her spine brushed the wall, but she didn't look away. "You don't understand what this would mean," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Then explain it to me." Her hands fisted at her sides, knuckles white. "People will think I used you, that I crossed a line I had no right to, that she broke off, jaw tight." I reached up without thinking, brushing a strand of hair from her face. My fingers lingered near her temple. She closed her eyes for half a second, and I felt the tiniest shiver run through her. "I don't care what they think," I said, barely above a breath. Her eyes opened, wet sharp, "But I do." The confession gutted the air out of the room. And yet, even as she said it, she didn't move away. My hand stayed near her cheek, my body too close. Her breathing quickened. Mine matched it. The heat between us was unbearable. "I can't stop thinking about you," I admitted, the words reckless now, slipping out before I could cage them. Her lips parted, her hand rising as if to push me away, but instead, she rested it flat against my chest, right where my heart hammered. Her palm trembled. A beat, a silence thick with everything unspoken. And then she whispered, breaking herself open, "Neither can I." The sound of her words stole the ground from beneath us. We both knew. Something had shifted that couldn't be undone. The storm had passed by nightfall, but inside the house the air felt heavier than before. My aunt had gone upstairs early, exhausted from the long day, leaving the two of us alone in the living room again. Elena stood by the window, arms folded, watching the street glisten under the dim lamplight. I sat on the couch, trying to pretend the distance between us was enough. But it wasn't. It never was. She spoke without turning. "If we do this, there's no taking it back." Her voice was steady, but I saw her shoulders rise and fall too quickly. I got up, crossed the room slowly. Every step tightened the pull between us. When I reached her, I stopped just behind her, close enough to catch the warmth radiating off her body. "I don't want to take it back," I said quietly. Her hands gripped her elbows harder, but she didn't move away. The silence stretched. I lifted a hand, hesitant, and brushed my fingers against her arm. She flinched, but not from rejection. More like she was startled by how much she wanted it too. "Elena," you whispered. She turned finally. Her face was inches from mine, eyes wide, filled with everything she'd tried to bury. "This isn't fair to you," she breathed. "I should be the strong one. You don't have to be." My hand rose, trembling, and I brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. My thumb grazed her cheek, soft alive. Her lips parted. Her breath warmed my skin. For a moment, neither of us moved. The room seemed to lean with us, everything balanced on the thinnest thread. Then she stepped closer. Barely. Just enough that her chest brushed mine. "I can't keep pretending I don't feel this," she whispered, eyes flicking to my mouth and back. I didn't answer with words. I leaned in, slowly, giving her the chance to pull away. She didn't. Our lips hovered a breath apart, the air charged, unbearable. My hand slid to the back of her neck, her pulse fluttering beneath my fingers. And then, she closed the gap. The kiss wasn't polished or gentle. It was raw, desperate, like both of us had been holding our breath for too long. Her hand clutched at my shirt, pulling me closer. Mine anchored her, afraid she'd slip away. When we broke apart, we were both shaking, foreheads pressed together, breathing hard. "This is wrong," she whispered again, but softer now, stripped of resistance. "Maybe," I said, "but it's real." Her eyes searched mine, tears brimming but unshed. And in that look, everything was clear. We'd crossed the line. There was no going back, and neither of us wanted to. For the first time, there was no silence left between us. Only truth. The house was silent except for the soft ticking of the old clock in the hall. We stayed there, still pressed together, her forehead against mine, neither of us willing to move first. When she finally spoke, her voice was low, ragged. "I've spent years building walls, telling myself it was too late for this for someone like you." I held her face gently, brushing my thumb over her cheekbone. "You don't have to explain. I already know." Her eyes searched mine, uncertain. "You shouldn't. You're young. You'll regret this one day." I shook my head, steady now. "Maybe I'll regret a lot of things in my life. But not this. Not you." Her lips trembled, not from doubt, but from the weight of hearing what she'd never let herself hope for. She leaned into me, slow, deliberate, her arms winding around my waist. I pulled her close, tighter than I meant to, as if I could keep her safe from the years and the world outside that would never understand. The hug stretched long, unbroken. Her body softened against mine, her breath steadying. And in that stillness, the fear that had wrapped itself around us seemed to finally loosen. When she pulled back just enough to look at me, her expression had changed. The guardedness was still there, but it was joined by something else, something fragile, alive. "I don't know where this will lead," she admitted. "Then let's not decide tonight," I said softly. "Let's just be here, together." Her smile was small, uneven but real. She rested her forehead against mine again, letting the silence carry the truth better than words could. We sat on the couch after that, shoulder to shoulder, her hand slipping into mine. I laced our fingers together, holding on like I'd been waiting my whole life for that simple contact. She didn't let go. No grand declarations. No promises we couldn't keep. Just the warmth of her hand, the brush of her arm against mine, the quiet understanding that we had crossed something we couldn't return from, and neither of us wanted to. When she finally leaned her head against my shoulder, I turned and pressed a soft kiss in her hair. She sighed, almost a whisper, and it felt like the world outside the room had vanished. The age gap, the doubt, the fear, they hadn't disappeared. But for the first time, they didn't seem bigger than what we felt in that moment. We didn't need to name it. We only needed to sit there, the night wrapped around us, hands entwined, hearts steady at last. And that was enough. Sparkles, did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?